Hey there, Taurus. So happy astrological new year. That's starting on March the 20th, 2026. The astrological new year starts when the sun goes into Aries every year. And so to me, this is the real new year. And this is a forecast to tell you about the biggest things that are going on in your chart over this next year. I'm really going to be talking about the position of the slower moving planets and the nodes, and how that might be shaping your year. It's not going to go into the nitty gritty, but I'm really giving you the overview, the overall architecture of your life in this year ahead. Now, this is all based on a whole sign charting methodology. So if when you look at your birth chart, you've got both Taurus and Gemini in your first house, that's your key to also listen to the Gemini forecast, because that means that your chart is in Placidus, but anyway, or something else. So the first change that is coming in, I would say, is Uranus is going to move out of your first house. He's been there really since 2018. And Uranus, wherever he goes, he is awakening. He's bringing in a slightly chaotic, slightly exciting, change kind of energy. And in your first house, you'd have felt that really, really strongly. You know, Uranus has been there to create more liberty and a feeling of freedom in your personal life, and really in your body, your image, you know, like that essence of who you are has been wide open to change. Now that's going to settle down a little bit as he goes forwards officially from the 26th of April into your second house. I'll talk more about him in a second. But the other big change for you would be Chiron starting his change. So this year he's dipping his toe into your sign. So on the 19th of June, he's coming into the sign of Taurus for the first time in about 50 years. Then he's going to be there for 3 months, almost exactly to the day. And then on the 18th of September, he's going back into Aries until, I think, April of 2027. But this is going to mark a change. First of all, you know, actually, I'll tell you about that in a minute. I'm going to start at the beginning and work my way through. But I guess the biggest change to understand is that you're coming out of chaos and going into healing. That's the headline. Anyway, so with this year ahead, the first thing I want to focus on would be this area here blocked out in yellow on both sides. This is showing the path of where all of the eclipses are taking place in this next year, from the 20th of March until the 20th of March 2027. And it's also showing where the nodes are. So the node, as we enter into this new year, is at 8 degrees in the sign of Pisces. By the end of this period of time, it's at 19 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. Now, what you've been learning over the last year, just over a year with the node in Pisces, is how fluid things are in terms of your friendships, and how it's really important to have some forgiveness within your friendships. You might have realized that, you know, friends are more important than you'd ever known. But also that you can't always trust what's come out of the mouths of the people that you most closely adore. And so it's been quite a learning curve, because you've been learning to use your intuition to know who you can trust and who you can't trust, and also recognizing, you know, how things go wrong in relationships. I really think there'd been lots of huge bits of learning here from the disappointments, but also through the things that you've observed where things have gone really well. So you've been learning lots about the people in your life, and also about some of the things that happen when you're reliant on other people to get things done. Now we're coming into a nodal pattern where the node comes into the 10th house, and you're now wanting to get things done on your own. See, you've kind of perfected how to get the right support from people. And you've also learned about the responsibility of what happens when people are supporting you. Sometimes you get the help you want. Sometimes you get the help they think you need. And so learning, and you're still going to be learning this actually until 26th of July. But you're just refining what you've learned so far about that. in preparation for the next stage where you'll be really supporting yourself. When you need somebody around, to help you, you'll know how to engage with them. So if anything, you've been kind of learning how to manage your people resources, the people resources in your life, in a much more effective way to have success. And actually, that is where the next, I guess, lesson is going. From the 26th of July, as the North Node comes into the 10th house, you're on a success path. Now, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to have success, but your energies are going to be very much focused on getting things looking really optimistic in terms of your career. It's a time of expansion for sure. Now, wherever the North Node is, the South Node is in opposition. And so the South Node, I think, has been showing you where actually you know how to have fun. So you don't necessarily need friends to show you how to have fun. You already know that, you've perfected that. And now you're coming into, at the other end of things, as you're going into your career and showing how you can do that very well, you may well feel some tension around the home life. In reality, with the South Node coming into your fourth house from mid-July, you're reminded about how well you cope at home. You're reminded of how skilled you are within your family, how skilled you are within your home. You're reminded about all of your security. To me, it feels like your security is of vital importance. It feels absolutely like there's an intense need to keep your security really pegged down. And so, this is the challenge actually of your chart, is how do you expand whilst remaining rooted? And that's something that a Taurian really is concerned with. This is something that the Taurian person or the Taurian ascendant really is activated by, because they are looking for comfort as much as possible. So that's the challenge of this year ahead, is how do I stay grounded? How do I stay secure and comfortable whilst I'm climbing up the ladder and getting ready to claim success? And I'm going to be talking more about this as we go through, when I talk about the circuit of inspiration and all the ignition points coming up. Anyway, let's move on to Jupiter. So Jupiter, as we enter into this new year, is just like 2/3 of the way through in the sign of Cancer. He's already had his retrograde. So you've had a lot of time to learn about how to enjoy yourself with your friends. Now, it sounds crazy saying that, because why would you need to learn how to have fun? I mean, it's one of the first things we do as a child, hopefully. But it's interesting, because you've had the North Node in Pisces, giving you some much broader lessons about the people in your life. And then you've also had Jupiter in your third house, sort of expanding this sense of fun with people. So I do think, whilst you've been enjoying yourself and feeling at ease within your community, it's like you can't expand anywhere without picking up some lessons along the way. No path is completely without peril. And I guess, it's been a social time, and there have been ups and downs with all of your relationships. So on the whole, I would say with Jupiter going through the third, it's been very, very good. Mostly the people around you can trust. And, the difficulties might have come up in business networks or friends of friends, people on the outside. But actually, Jupiter's going to be coming into your fourth house from the 29th of June. It's a very important time, actually, because as Jupiter comes across, Chiron is also moving into your first house, sort of at the same time. But anyway, Jupiter comes into your fourth house, and all of a sudden he's wanting to expand at home. Now, it's going to be very difficult to stay stable and comfortable at home as Jupiter comes in, because he often brings with him an extra responsibility or two. Although Jupiter isn't about responsibility, that's more of a Saturn thing, Jupiter does tend to expand a family or the need to expand a home when he's in the fourth house. So I don't know if there's another person moving in, a surprise pregnancy, You know, is there a lodger that, you know, you give refuge to somebody? I don't know. But to me, it feels like there's going to be some curveballs coming, and mostly happy curveballs. You know, it's a happy heart expansion. But to me, it just feels like, you know, your stable idea of what your home looks like is going to be a little bit topsy-turvy for a while. And it's also okay. It's really you'll feel any pressure to act on it around the 19th to 23rd of July. But really the whole of July and into August is really feeling the changes at home. So again, how do you maintain that calm and peace whilst you've got stuff going on in your actual career? The more you can feel calm and peaceful at home, in fact, the easier your career is going to go. So it might be worth considering getting help at home. It might be helpful considering how you organize your home to cope with the outward demands of your career. Anyway, Jupiter and Saturn, they've recently gone into your 12th house. And with that, it can come a little bit of a dimming of your feelings of joy. You know, Saturn, wherever he goes, no disrespect to him, but he often brings up a few niggles and problems and a little bit of an attitude of pessimism. Saturn's not the most positive planet. You know, he's a bit of a worrier, and also a judger. You know, he judges things. And so one of the difficulties sometimes with having Saturn coming into the 12th is that we can judge ourselves harshly, and we can also kind of torture ourselves a little bit. You know, we can sometimes bully ourselves and kind of self-sabotage somewhat. Now, Neptune, when he comes, and also Saturn can just cast a feeling of pessimism in your unconscious mind, you know, so you might think, what's the point? And then all of a sudden you're lacking that sort of vitality and that spark to move forwards. Now, with Neptune coming in, it can bring a real kind of wishy-washy energy into your 12th house, where you almost feel like you're disappearing sometimes. It may well feel like, I don't even know who I am anymore. You know, it can create a feeling of anything goes. Your unconscious mind can really change shape a lot. And then, you know, it's like, wow, who am I at my core? So, you know, these two planets, you know, when I hear people talking and saying, oh, I'm a bit depressed, often I see, you know, something going on in the 12th house. Now, that's not to define this conjunction as depressing, because I don't think that's helpful to you. But it's important that if you feel yourself going into a depression, that you find a way to bring calm and meditation and guided reflection into your world. So that's why I'm sharing it. You see, Neptune is deeply spiritual, and, you know, he'll drift away and kind of use the imagination. So if one of your hobbies in this year ahead is to learn about your unconscious mind, to paint, like art therapy, to move, dance, or sing, anything that's creative and allowing your natural intuition to come out is going to be beneficial. Better out than in is my motto here, is allow your creativity out so that it doesn't kind of fester and bring along some friends. With Saturn, it's asking you for discipline. So when you put these together, it's like, how could you develop a discipline of mental well-being? How could you develop a discipline of singing? You know, so, or dancing, or whatever it is that expresses your creativity. So my advice here is to join a group of some sort. Now, it might be a meditation group. It might be like a choir or something like that, an art group. A reading group would be good. Anything that allows your creative mind to have sanctuary and to have a place. I also think it would be a very helpful time for you to have a personal mentor, somebody that can also step in and listen to you, hold space for you, and help you understand another perspective. Because, you know, when Saturn and Neptune come in, it can really cloud your perception. So it would be helpful to have someone that you trust around you that can help you see beyond the picture that you might well take on and think it's your own. So it's something to be aware of. Now, the fact that Chiron is coming in here is going to be helpful. See, Chiron has been in your 12th house since 2018. And when he comes through the 12th house, he often brings up this feeling of woundedness. I've got this wound. I know I've got this trauma from the past, but it brings it up unconsciously. So you may well, in recent years, have had a vague recollection of things that have been traumatic, or a feeling like a somatic feeling, like really difficult and unusual feelings in your body. And you're like, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm feeling like I'm feeling into dis-ease. And so it's kind of interesting that Saturn and Neptune are kind of taking up the baton in the 12th house, but really hinting that it's time to use discipline to really help you get all of your creative energy that you could turn on yourself out, so it can be filling the world with beauty and purpose instead, and clarity as well. Now, when Chiron comes into the first house and he's moving forwards into the sign of Taurus on the 19th of June, he's there for 3 months and he goes back into the 12th. He is helping you finally see what's going on. He is like a vital piece, a vital clue in your healing as to what's been going on. He's there to show you, here it is. This is the thing that happened. And so you may well get very identified with what occurred. It might feel like really important to find that key point that was the problem. And then, with the idea that once I find that, I can work on it. Now, that may or may not be true. I don't actually know if it is, but I think you'll have more to grab onto and it'll be helpful. Now, the next part of what I'm going to say, I think, is the thing to really focus on, because you don't want to just find the cause and kind of hold on to it and say, look, this is my pain, this is my wound. It almost becomes a wound trophy. You know how people sometimes play woundedness top trumps, like where you talk about yours, someone else talks about theirs, and it's almost like a fight, who's had it hardest. You don't want to celebrate it necessarily. Just to acknowledge it and to see it and to understand this happened is enough, but getting identified in it is also problematic. And this is where Chiron is really helpful. He's in the sign of Taurus, your first house. He's indicating that, again, using your creativity, Taurus is a very creative sign, using nature, using natural foods, using everything natural. So part of feeling much better in your body might be natural movement, like working out or doing a gentle Tai Chi or something in nature, outdoors with the sun shining. It might be getting your eyes attuned and trained to the natural circadian rhythm. But nature and feeling like you're part of the world is going to be a really big theme, not just for this year, like next year it's really coming in. So you might as well get the ball rolling and start that movement. That would be my advice. And that's how all these planets are working together. Now, I did mention Uranus at the start, because he's been in your first house since 2018, and now he's moving forward. So you don't have to innovate your personality anymore. It's going to be a lot more peaceful. And again, I think that also works with these energies and in terms of mental health. You don't have to keep changing. That's the point here. You don't have to keep changing. You don't have to keep identifying. Actually, what's more important is this release of energy, this beautiful creative release coming from you. But with Uranus coming into your second, other things are being innovated, and that would be starting with your methods of earning money. Now, it's worth having a few savings behind you, or finding a way to put like a little pot of gold somewhere. Taurians, I know and love a lot of people with the Taurian energy. And one of the things that they've always, in my mind, been good at is having something for a rainy day. That could not be more important a thing to do right now, because as Uranus comes into your second house in the sign of Gemini, he's going to be there for 7 or 8 years. And in that time, he's going to create a lot of excitement around your earnings. You know, he's going to be increasing them suddenly, and then there might be like a drop in the market that, you know, there's going to be these ups and downs. It won't necessarily feel very stable. One way you can maximize the stability would be to anticipate the change. And so one way you might do that is by maybe watching the markets, playing with money, having more of a speculative approach. Now, I'm not saying go down the bookies and bet it all away on horses, not unless you're really good at that and you don't have any kind of addiction with it that could ruin you. But learning about flows and anticipating that there might be times where there's a lot coming in and then there's a time when not so much. You might find that the way you best work now is more seasonal, you know, that has change put into your diary. So I don't know what you might choose to do in terms of the way you earn money, but there's a much bigger piece emerging about that. It seems over the next 7-8 years, and actually beyond that, because Pluto is also in your 10th house. So these two are really wanting you to transform your money and your career, and they are like encouraging you to transform it in such a radical way that I think actually within the next couple of years, your working life is going to be very, very different. So yeah, the big question here is, how can I create more freedom for myself and earn money? How can I not be tied down to a routine, not be tied down to a particular task? How can I have more freedom? How can I have an ethical freedom or a feeling of not being pushed into something for money that I'm not comfortable with? This is all about you feeling completely free. Now, obviously, I don't have the answers for that. I'm just saying this is a theme going on in this year ahead, but it's worth really thinking about this in earnest now. You've already been feeling the rumblings because Pluto moved into your 10th house just a couple of years ago. And most likely, one of the things that's fueling this is that you've had a dominant, really controlling person around you saying, this is how it has to be. You have to have this really perfect, you know, especially if you've worked for somebody else, or maybe you've had a really dominant client, really, or maybe, you know, you're listening to feedback and it just seems like everything is a finger pushing you down. When Pluto comes into the 10th house, we are really looking for freedom from scrutiny. And becoming powerful in ourselves because, you know, we're maybe not taking other people's ideas about us that seriously. So these are going hand in hand, which brings me to my last point. So between the 19th and 23rd of July, there's this really strong ignition point where Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter are all at 4 degrees, all making this kind of boat on its side energy. And it's really working you from the perspective of how can you have a stable and beautiful home whilst transforming your career and whilst staying mentally fit and financially fit. And so all of these are going to be working together. Now, it's going to, things are likely to really rapidly change around those dates. But you'll be feeling it coming in from like late June as Jupiter starts to move into place, and it will be really fading off around, you know, like late August. However, that energy is really working hard. So my final suggestions would be is to between now and the new moon in your first house on the 16th of May, really take some time to consider how you want to build your career, how you could change it. Where are there opportunities? What are the threats? For instance, like a SWOT analysis, maybe not quite as mechanistically as that. It might be good to get some career coaching or some guidance to really consider what would light you up and what would allow you to feel true to yourself. And yeah, just really consider, if I had to do something for the rest of my life and to feel like I was mentally sane because I was doing something I believed in, what would it be? As you start to answer those questions, the rest of this year will start to take shape around your answers. Now, one word of caution, around the 26th of October, there's a full moon in your first house and you're likely to feel super sensitive around that time. So just a week before, it was worth marking in your diary, start to offload some of your pressure. Any pressure that's coming in that feels too much, just think, is this for me right now? Can I park it? Do I have to do it right now or not? Just manage your flow. So there you go. That's my overview to your year ahead in terms of the architecture. I hope it's been helpful. If you would like to go much deeper at a personal level with your chart, then just get in touch and book an appointment. Anyway, lots of love to you. Have a great one, Taurus. Catch up with you all soon. Bye for now.